Three, two, one. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Talk Soccer to Me on Wednesdays. So, welcome back. This is the first ever Wednesday episode of Talk Soccer to Me, the greatest soccer podcast you've never heard of. Also, the worst soccer podcast you should have heard of. This is the first Wednesday episode. And what is going to separate this Wednesday episode is I want to do something different on Wednesdays. So, Monday, I'm going to talk about the weekend. And that's what I did on Monday. I talked about the Premier League, everything that happened on the weekend. And then on Friday, I want to talk about during the week. Going forward, there'll be like Champions League and stuff like that. This week, there was the Champions League playoff round. There's the Champions League draw tomorrow. And I think Real Madrid played today. But that's not my goal with Wednesdays. My goal with Wednesdays is to cover everything that I find particularly interesting in the whole world of soccer. So maybe call it like World Wednesdays. And things that, again, I just typically wouldn't cover because in a normal episode, it's like what happened in the Premier League, what happened in La Liga, Bundesliga, Serie A, the French League. I talk about like the pan-European competitions a lot. But there's a lot of interesting stuff that I feel as though I leave out. And I want to cover that. And I want to have like its own episode where I can dedicate a few minutes to all of it. I think there's like so many interesting leagues out there and storylines and narratives and players. And yes, I'm aware that the best players fit into the bubble of the top 5 leagues and the Champions League. And there's a few players spread out in other parts of the world, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, so on and so forth. But that's where most of the talent is. Most of the talent is concentrated at the top. But I think the teams, the storylines, the competitiveness of other leagues can be equally as entertaining. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily always say that the bigger leagues are inherently more entertaining. The product might be better. But you got a Premier League that up until, we kind of on a Man City dominance run. Yes, I know Arsenal and Liverpool won the last 2 trophies or Premier Leagues, but City's been dominant. It probably will end. Bayern are dominant in Germany. PSG have had a monopoly on the French title. It's mainly Real Madrid and Barcelona in Spain, with Atletico popping up and winning one every 10 years. Italy gives you a little more variation. In the last couple of years, we have seen Napoli, Inter, Milan, and Juventus win it. Though it's been a couple of years now at this point for Juventus. So, and it's going to be a little hypocritical because some of the other leagues that I do find interesting are kind of bottlenecked towards the top, now that I think about it. But it does give you just more to watch, more to enjoy, more to entertain. And when you actually see some of the teams in the Champions League, you're like, oh, I know that guy. Because I think, like, even within Europe, like, usually Scotland's interesting. And yes, that is a very much elite team dominated Celtic and Rangers, specifically Celtic over the last couple years. The Dutch league is always interesting, even though it's almost always going to be won by Ajax, PSV, or Feyenoord. Portugal with their big 3, Turkey with their big 3. But Denmark, Austria, Norway, there are other leagues that I find interesting. And as the season goes on, the narratives around them develop. Like there's 2 Norwegian teams in the Champions League this year. So it'll keep an eye out on that league. But it's even more than just that, even more than Europe. There's women's soccer, WSL, UEFA Women's Champions League, the NWSL, the Saudi League. Money, controversy, sports washing aside, like there is a lot of talent there, and it's kind of hard to ignore to an extent because it's like, yeah, it's tough, but it's like, okay, that's where Cristiano Ronaldo is, Sadio Mane, like there is talent there. And yeah, no, there's so much more. Like I personally want to cover the USL this year, and that'll segue into other things. But yeah, that's just kind of what I want to go on. Like other Champions Leagues are interesting. So this is the first Wednesday episode. I think the way I'll typically go is like we'll start with Europe and branch off into like what I find particularly interesting. And the first 2 leagues that I'm going to talk about are happening right now. And I am constantly up in the air about talking about them. Well, it was 1 league, but now it's 2. And I'll explain that in a second. Again, this is Talk Soccer to Me. Follow on all social medias, but this is mainly just streaming platforms and YouTube. I do somewhat post on the Instagram, but nothing crazy. But let's jump into it. So the 2 leagues I want to talk about first. The two leagues that I don't want to talk about, but will probably have to talk about, but I don't want to talk about, is MLS in the United States and Liga MX out of Mexico. So the reason that these two leagues are being singled out by me and my frustration is they're the two biggest leagues in the world that are closed off. There's no promotion and relegation. MLS has been like that since the start in the 90s. Liga MX wasn't that way. They were during COVID, during just like stabilized things. And then they said they were going to bring it back. And then this week they announced they never will. That Liga MX will remain a closed, I believe, 18-team league. And that's frustrating. And it's really frustrating because I do think they offer something different in playoffs that I find to be entertaining. Like, I think the MLS with its playoff system has the potential to offer up something different and unique to the rest of the world. And with Liga MX being probably the biggest league in the world that does the Aperta Clausura open and closing leagues, where they split the season in half and you're basically competing for two seasons in one, both leagues offer a uniqueness that is unparalleled in format compared to the rest of the world. But with the lack of promotion and relegation, it ultimately creates an uninteresting product in the long run, and teams that are content by just being in the league. A lot of it has to do with the fact that, I mean, the North American sports system, so like the big four American sports are American football, basketball, hockey, and baseball. And they're closed leagues. But they operate in a world, in a sporting world that allows for that to exist, for North American sports leagues to be closed model. A lot of it has to do with the college and the prospects and the draft. All talent is being funneled into the league. So if a team does bad, there will always be a chance to do better. Yes, in every sport you have perennial losers, Washington Wizards, Cleveland Browns, Buffalo Sabres, hell, my Baltimore Orioles most of the time. And yeah, so there's issues with that. The NFL is a little bit better at the parity. Baseball is probably going to go on a lockout because of it. But in the North American sports model, it works. The MLS and Liga MX being a part of something bigger, that is world soccer, I think prevents them from being an entertaining product while maintaining that North American style closed league. I understand where the MLS is coming from, and I understand where MLS owners are coming from. If you look at the investment made on new teams and new stadiums in the last few years, the money's substantial. And it's hard to get investors for new teams without some guarantee of stability. But I think as a country, we are watching this sport grow year in and year out. That there can be a market and there should be a plan, even if it's like a 10-year plan. If the MLS was like, we're going to set it up to where we're step by step, where we're setting up a system to where promotion and relegation will start in 2036, 10 years from now, I'd be like, you know what? All right, we'll see it out. But I think the country has the capacity for a soccer pyramid. I think it's doable. I think you can look at the crowds across the USL, both levels, across women's soccer. There is an appetite to support local teams. So I do not believe the top of American soccer should be cut off to 33 teams in 30 cities? It's not, I mean, like, you got teams like DC United, or it's just, they've made the playoff system once in the last 7 years. Now, I think MLS is overhauling their playoff system. More teams, kind of like a double chance. Like, I think they're doing the right things in that regard. And I understand, like, it is easy for me to sit here and be like, it should be a promotion relegation league, when I imagine there's contracts in place and investments and this and that. But I think at its core, American soccer will always be a step below where we think it should be if there's not a main league with promotion relegation. I think promotion relegation promotes academy growth. If teams do decline and they don't have the money to sign players, they have to pull from the academy. So that would see investments in academy, because academy is kind of a fallback. How many times you've seen like the Arsenal project? Arsenal are able to fall back on guys like Emil Smith-Rowe, Eddie Nketiah, Bukayo Saka through the academy. And it's a psychological thing too. Fans are more likely to give leniency to the academy player than someone brought in for X, Y, or Z amount of money. So if you get a system where, let's say, for example, Philadelphia Union get relegated. The MLS is a 30-team league. 3 teams get relegated. Philadelphia Union are one of them. And it's a big financial burden on Philly. They're still getting butts in seats, but money's a little tight. And they can't sign a right winger. But they got a 17-year-old kid. Grew up 15 minutes outside of Philadelphia, coming up through their academy. Philly kid through and through. They're going to play him. Now the fans got one of their own. If I was the supporter of a local American team, and I watched some kid grow up 15 minutes from me, maybe I know his cousin, the way that this happens in Europe, and he's one of our own, I'd go crazy for the kid. I would. Everyone would. It'd be incredible. So I think we're gonna be handcuffed, and it's gonna stagnate the sport. We're gonna be stuck in this round of 16 purgatory. I think there's more talent coming out of Japan than there is the United States. They've got promotion relegation. Nothing's guaranteed over there. And you look at the young crop of Japanese players in Europe, Matoma and those guys, they're better than the Americans. And around the same time, in the 90s, when the United States said, all right, we're going to develop the MLS, and Japan, because they had the 1994 World Cup, and then in 1998, Japan had their World Cup, and Japan was like, all right, we're going to develop like a 100-year plan on how to make this an elite soccer country. And that involves a league with promotion and relegation. And they still have like a high school sports model over there, but their academies are better at developing talent than ours. And I have no problem with American players that are dual nationals. But if the national team is a majority dual nationals, that means American clubs are inherently failing. And a lot of that comes down, I think the core of it all is that will never change if there isn't promotion relegation. So as someone who wants to see U.S. soccer achieve the highest highs, it's hard to support a league that does not have promotion relegation. And as someone who's always looked south of the border and very much enjoyed Liga MX, it's very frustrating to see them go down that same path. Because I remember growing up, and the 2 soccer channels were Fox Soccer and Goal TV. And Goal TV played a lot of Liga MX. I watched a lot of Liga MX in Spanish growing up. Not even being able to speak a lick of Spanish. Watched a lot of it. Club America, Cruz Azul, Tijuana, Pumas, Tigres, like great teams, great clubs, well supported. And I think it's going to hurt Mexican soccer in the long run too. And it's very frustrating. Because this would be like the ideal time, the ideal episode to support those leagues. And now I don't know if I want to. I mean, the USL, the other major soccer organization in the United States, is making a push to have promotion relegation. Now, there is still stipulations to where I think they're going to make a super league. I don't know if it's the USL Championship or that's the name of the current league. Give me 1 second. All right, so currently it's USL Championship, USL 1, USL 2. Going forward in 2027, the USL is going to create a new division called the USL Premier, and then that will have a promotion relegation system with the championship. Now, they have not spoken as to whether teams would then be relegated outside of the championship, and the stipulations are to start in that league, they must be in a major metropolitan area, have a venue over 15,000, and an ownership group with a net worth of over $70 million, An individual owner with a net worth of $40 million must have a 35% or greater stake in the club. There's teams out of Dallas, Louisville, North Carolina FC, Pittsburgh Riverhounds, Sporting Club Jacksonville, which are current teams that exist, interested in joining, as well as teams out of Detroit, Sacramento, Birmingham, Alabama, Miami, and Oakland. Oakland Roots, really cool team. And I would like to see that. So I think it's actually 2028, not 2027. And it would be 12 teams, and they're claiming that it's level 1 of United States soccer. So yeah, right now, like, I'd rather talk about the USL. And that'd be impossible. I mean, outside of the championship in League One, there are a million teams spread out throughout the USL in the United States. But yeah, no, I just I'm really frustrated. It's really frustrating. I think this World Cup was frustrating, and I think it's promotion relegation. So I don't know. My heart might not be in it when it comes to those leagues on this episode. Like, this would be the perfect episode. Now, we'll talk about the NWSL, which is the Women's League, which isn't a closed off system, but women's soccer needs to survive. So I don't think I can hold them to the same lens that I will hold the men's. I think that's fair. And if you disagree, I don't care. So yeah, no, I mean, the two major leagues out in North America, compete in the Leagues Cup, which is gimmicky. And all the games in the Leagues Cup are in the United States, which is stupid. And like the North American Champions League, I think it's technically back to being called the North American Champions Cup. I feel like they've changed the name 4 times in the last 15 years. This is an interesting league. It's an interesting league. So yeah, I want to talk about other Champions Leagues as well. The Copa Libertadores down in South America will be covered in this show, though I do not believe it runs on the same schedule. No, we're smack dab in the middle of the Copa Libertadores. The round of 16 actually just wrapped up. Let's see, we got some big names. El Dio Quito out of Ecuador defeated Mirassol out of Brazil. Never heard of that club. It's a Brazilian club. Palmeiras defeated Cerro Porteño. Platense of Argentina defeated Coquimbo Unido out of Chile. Fluminense over Independiente. Flamengo versus Cruzeiro. Independent of LA versus Deportes Tolima. Corinthians over Rosario Central. Estudiantes versus Universidad Católica. So yeah, the Argentinian teams are not the bigger name ones. Yeah, Boca Juniors. I don't think River Plate qualified, and Boca Juniors, they did not make it out of the group stage. So yeah, no, in about a month or so, there'll be the Copa Libertadores semifinals, which will be a great watch. It's one of the most entertaining soccer tournaments in the world. I usually will keep up with like the Asian Champions League, though they've changed their format and it's a little gimmicky, and it's like one location, and it used to be home and away, and it was really interesting. You'd have to go to places, you'd go to Australia or Japan or Iran or Saudi Arabia or Qatar, and now it's like they're in Saudi Arabia for a single elimination knockout quarterfinal that I just find particularly uninteresting. So we'll cover that. What else? Well, the championship, second division of England, is one of, if not the most interesting league in the world. It is a gauntlet of 46 games a season. I do not know of a longer league in the world. Like, what league plays more than 46 games in a year? Yeah. It's insane. They did expand the playoffs, so it's the top 2 teams still go to the Premier League. 3 and 4 get a bye, and then teams that finish 5, 6, 7, and 8 will play in the quarterfinals for the final spot. Game still at Wembley. I mean, we're 2 games in the season, and the 3 teams that got sent down from last year, not doing too great. Wolves has a win and a draw. West Ham has a draw and a loss. And Burnley has a draw and a loss. Yeah, West Ham lost at home to Charlton Athletic. who haven't been in the Premier League in forever. And Burnley went on the road and they lost to West Brom, who has not been in the Premier League in forever. So this league's ramping up. I'm really excited. Millwall, West Brom, and Charlton are undefeated so far. There's also Wrexham. Love them or hate them, they're here. They're a moneymaker. They're a talker. I mean, with the show of Hulu, I know people who don't particularly follow soccer in the slightest, who will be like, "Oh, what's the Rob McElhenney, Ryan Reynolds team? When do they play?" I had a friend ask me, "There's nothing about soccer. Will they play the United States?" No, I told him, but I still found it interesting that he was asking me questions about soccer. So yeah, that's one I would like to keep up with. That's gonna be a fun one. There's a lot of talent. I mean, even you look at the guys who scored 2 goals so far on the list. Will Lancashire, good striker. Kyle Larin, Canadian, good striker. Zian Fleming out of Burnley was a good striker last year. There's an insane amount of talent in this league, front to back. I mean, just looking through the managers, you recognize some of the names. Rob Edwards he left, but like Nuno is still down there. Chris Wilder is at Sheffield. Like there's talent. It's a fun league. Really excited. Do not think I will go further down. I just don't know if I have the time and capacity to get like League One, League Two, but still very interesting nonetheless. These leagues also operate like on different schedules. They've got different formats. Like the Austrian league is already 4 games into its season, and then they split. It's a 12-team league into a top and a bottom. Scotland does the same. Belgium is 3 games into their season. They went back to a normal format, 18-team league, just play everyone home and away. Denmark, they have started, they're 5 games into the season. I wonder, being a little further north, if they take a long winter break, because their season goes till May 30th. So yeah, there has to be a winter break. They also split off top bottom. Greek league just started. And there's some talent, Olympiakos, Panathinaikos, AK Athens, PAC, some good teams. They split off in like 3 different groups. The Eredivisie is 3 games in. AZ is actually the only team undefeated so far. PSV, Feyenoord, Ajax, with all right starts to the season. There's definitely been some interesting storylines, as I feel like those 3 are kind of not necessarily losing their grip on the top, but teams like AZ and with Ajax kind of falling off compared to where they've been in years past. Portugal has started up. Porto and Sporting right at the top where they belong. Benfica, I mean, you just draw off the top and then they're falling behind. Switzerland's a couple games into the season, and Turkey 2 games into the season, which I'm very excited about. Galatasaray, Fenerbahce have just poured a lot of money into their teams. And I say that. I mean, Fenerbahce's already lost a game this season. They went to I'm butchering this. Gençler Birliği out of Ankara, the capital, who's top of the league. 2 wins. Straight up. Trabzonspor, always a great club. So yeah, there's Turkey. We're going to get everywhere. There's not a lot to talk about in today's episode necessarily. I mean, I'm 24 minutes into it. But it's just kind of laying a foundation of what I would like the episodes to get into going forward. So, maybe start it off with the championship, bounce around Europe, head over to North America, hit the NWSL, begrudgingly talk about the MLS and Liga MX, Copa Libertadores talk throughout the rest of the fall, as well as I believe the Brazilian and Argentinian leagues will be wrapping up, MLS will be wrapping up, one half of Liga MX will be wrapping up. Get over, cover the Middle East, cover East Asia. If I give maybe about 5 to 10 minutes on each region, I think that'd be ideal. And yeah, no mention of the big 5 leagues. I mean, there's major teams I just have not mentioned in this episode and will not mention in this episode. That's not what I'm going to do. That's not how we're going to do things around here no more. Not on Wednesdays. Give them Monday and Friday. They can have it. I'm looking at my notes here. So yeah, I think the main gist of this episode is my frustration with the American and Mexican soccer federations because they should be elite. I mean, there's like a combined 500 million people out of Mexico and the United States. And if you combine the two 11s, they still wouldn't win the World Cup. And they're soccer obsessed countries. It's ridiculous. It's freaking ridiculous. But we're subject to the horrible world that is world soccer sometimes. And you just gotta roll with it. You know, like the stupid hydration breaks at the World Cup, which I do not miss, amongst other things. So yeah, this is the first Wednesday episode. Episode 1. This has been Talk Soccer to me. My name's Jack. Give it a like, give it a subscribe, tell people about it. Even if maybe you'll discover a team or a player that you start following after this. That's what I want my Wednesday episodes to do. But all in all, have a good one. Take it easy.